What's up, everybody? This is Sammy33 coming back for another video. So, this is going to be a four-part segment. I initially wanted to do three, but I wanted to give equal time to talk about these moments and kind of give them some context for people that don't watch wrestling or haven't watched wrestling, so you can kind of understand why they were so big. So we're going to do it in four parts. There will be 10 in total. These are not the objective or as close to objective top 10 moments in pro wrestling of all time. These are my 10 that I think were really big moments. There are some moments that were really big that I left out, but when you hear my reasoning, you can understand why I picked these 10. This kind of lets you know why I like wrestling and why I gravitated to certain wrestlers and not to others. This is definitely a hugely debated topic. The biggest moment definitely can be debated as well, but I went with 10 that I really liked, and we'll go with that. So, I'm still trying to figure out how to get this thing set up. So, trying to figure out how to get this thing set up so we'll get this thing out the way, get everything working properly so I can have like scrolling text. Still a work in progress. But I have my phone. And we're going to go here because I have a lot of notes. I've been doing this at work a lot to get it. So, of course, I'm an Undertaker fan. And what do you know? One of the biggest moments that I'm going to pick is going to be right away. I'm just going to jump in and go hard. Is the Undertaker losing to Brock Lesnar, thus the streak ending 21-1. The streak. I don't think it was planned, or at least when I know it wasn't planned. It just kind of happened and then it evolved over time. Undertaker, many victims during the course of this streak. King Kong Bundy, Kane multiple times, HBK multiple times, the greatest WrestleMania match of all time, arguably WrestleMania 25 against Shawn Michaels, not a main event either. It's crazy. Triple H 3 times. Edge, really great match. Orton when he was in the Legend Killer phase, which would have been a perfect time to end the streak there. He wins that. CM Punk, Jake the Snake, the list goes on. Just one odd match in there, Giant Gonzalez, which was a terrible match because Giant Gonzalez couldn't wrestle. The match ended on a low blow. Like it was just such a weird match. But this, and even Ric Flair, I can't forget that. It's so big because as The Undertaker has evolved as a character over the years, he became synonymous with the streak. So he's already this mythical being which has been able to stand the test of time. So as we have turned from wrestling in the 80s and the early 90s, where you have characters are such a big thing. When I say characters, I'm saying characters as in these guys are superheroes. They're super villains. And they exist in this other world, this fantasy world that we can get attached to. And you have The Undertaker who comes, who is some guy from beyond the grave, who gets his power from this urn that Paul Bearer has, who in the beginning shows no damage. No matter how many times you hit him, he just keeps getting up. He just keeps moving. It's really creepy. If you watch earlier Undertaker matches, as a kid, I was terrified. It seemed like no matter what you did to this guy, he just kept moving. Could not keep him down. And even when you did, if you were somehow lucky enough to beat him, he still got up reasonably quick after that 3 count. And it's like you just turn tail and run. The streak became synonymous with him. And it came to a point where every year at WrestleMania, you'd always get excited. As we get into WrestleMania season, who is going to be the one to challenge Taker? Who is going to be the one to have that opportunity to end the streak? And he became a vital part of WrestleMania over the last 15 years. Enter Brock Lesnar. So this is why it's important. First of all, if you didn't watch the match, he did sustain a concussion during the match. He says that he doesn't remember a lot of the match after it happened, doesn't remember when it happened. He was in and out at the hospital. But this loss did a couple of things. One, obviously, in his older age, it was a shock to all of us because there's this term in wrestling that when you go out, You go out on your back. You go out putting someone over. So everyone that has retired for the most part in wrestling or has left the company and gone to another company, they have went out, taken a loss to help put someone over on the way out because that was done for them on their way in. That's how wrestling has always worked. And when he lost, the first thing was, is he retiring? Because he's older. He has nothing to wrestle for. Titles mean nothing for this character, The Undertaker. He's had some. He's had some good reigns. He's older. Really, he comes back once a year for WrestleMania. What's left? And then Brock, what does he gain from it? So it was a really big question. If I remember correctly, Brock comes back. He destroys. He beats Taker, and it's crazy. It's a shock. And then he beats Cena with Suplex City, 23 German suplexes. And I look at the time, total domination, total domination. And then he ends the streak. He destroys Cena in a completely one-sided squash match. And it helped build this larger than life Brock Lesnar character that we have now. Not a lot of people don't like it, but this was the payoff. A lot of people, myself included, always felt that if Taker was going to lose, he should lose to someone younger because they get that huge payoff and that all that energy that surrounds that character goes forward with them in their career. Brock has already been an established vet. It's coming back into the company. We all know who Brock is. We know what he's accomplished at the UFC. He didn't necessarily need it, but the way that they have built his character after that in that Cena match, you understand why they chose to end it there. And it has worked. A lot of us don't agree with it, but it has worked. But it's just not the same with Taker at Mania. You still get those matches. You still had Bray Wyatt. I was there for that match. I was there for Hell in a Cell with Shane. It's just not the same. You're still excited for Taker to be there. He's synonymous with WrestleMania. But with the streak not being there, it's definitely lost some of his luster. And as he's gotten older, I understand the matches aren't going to be as good, but it just doesn't have the same effect. Still, best record in WrestleMania, most wins in WrestleMania history, probably won't be touched. The streak never will be. I can see a scenario where they'll create a storyline for someone chasing those many wins in a row, but I just don't see it. They're going to leave that alone. Undertaker, when he goes in the Hall of Fame, will be synonymous with the streak. The first thing that will pop up after his character. Great character, stood the test of time, and then immediately after the streak. Him losing to Lesnar, very, very awkward for everyone that watched, but all good things come to an end in wrestling. It always does. Moment number one. Moment number two. We're going to go with, I have to leave all of those kind of together. This is this is 2 and 3 put together. We'll leave that one alone. We'll go with the Cliq. Everyone knows the Cliq. Nash, Hall, Michaels, Triple H. There was an event, I want to say Madison Square Garden. I probably should have researched that, but I forgot where. There was an event where after the show, you guys know NWO, Wolfpack. After the show, heels and faces, you've always taught in wrestling, you always stay in character until you get to the back. Always. Now, this was a very awkward scenario because these guys were all friends. So even though you have the faces and the heels, they're all in the ring together, arms raised, giving each other the too sweet. Vince was furious. Because again, there's faces and heels. You guys aren't supposed to get along. Get along outside of the public eye. That's not how it works because it breaks the immersion. Vince was furious. This is a huge event because Shawn Michaels is a big name player. Can't do anything to him. What can you do to punish him? He is one of your top guys. Nash, one of your top guys. Hall as well. You have, Razor Ramon and Diesel at the time. There's nothing you can do. So who has to eat the punishment? That punishment is Triple H. Triple H was supposed to win the King of the Ring that year. He doesn't. His punishment. Who wins it in his place? Stone Cold. We're going to come back to Stone Cold later, but just think about that. Triple H is supposed to get that big push for winning the King of the Ring. Because of this event, he doesn't. He gets pushed down the card. He ends up having a WrestleMania match with the Ultimate Warrior who returns, and he gets squashed in less than a minute. Congratulations. That one event set Triple H back, way back. Talk about getting pushed to the back of the line. And what does it do? It benefits Stone Cold. So now we're going to focus on Stone Cold for just a little bit. That moment, him winning the King of the Ring, you have the promo, Austin 316. You say, well, you have, I can't remember, blah, 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 but you have your John 316s. Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. And then you have Stone Cold being launched to the moon. We look at Stone Cold again for another big moment. Moment number 3. The double turn, Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Royal Rumble, a controversial finish. So then you have a fatal 4-way match. Bret Hart, um, Stone Cold, I forget the fourth man, and Vader. And Stone Cold and Bret Hart kind of are stuck together. So then you have this awkward part. You have this awkwardness in wrestling where Bret Hart is a face, but he is not as likable. He's not as lovable because he's great in the ring. His character is getting kind of stale. He's not as appealing. What can you do? Then on the flip side, you have Stone Cold, who he's a heel, but the crowd is gravitating to him. They're starting to, it's starting to cheer for his actions, which is very uncommon at the time in wrestling. Before this, pretty much heels always got booed, faces always got cheered. But now you have this mix where, well, Bret's a face. He can't get over. On the flip side, Stone Cold's a heel, and this guy is over with the crowd, so what do? Submission match, WrestleMania, the double turn. The blood, Austin's bleeding. He gets put in the sharpshooter. Bret wins the match, but Austin never taps out. So Austin, Bret have a great match. Really gritty match, was a little different from the norm for Bret Hart during that time period because he's a real technical wrestler. So one, it kind of gets him out of his element, seeing him in a different light. But this turn starts to have their characters intersect, and then they both go in totally different directions. Bret, face, he becomes a heel. Talking bad about America, coming down to the ring with the Canadian flag, his Canadian brothers, drawing heat from the crowd, just playing it up to be an anti-American. Where on the flip side, Austin goes from being a heel, he gains the respect of the audience for never tapping out to the sharpshooter, though he's gushing blood, and he becomes a face. Still uses heel tactics, but he's over with the crowd, and then you have this Stone Cold character that's starting to ascend his way to becoming larger than life. Bret Hart goes heel, and he has a good run as a heel before he leaves the company. So it ends up working for both. Austin becomes a face, so you can run with him being the guy in the company, while Bret Hart, who's getting stale, you can still get him some traction with the company before he goes by being a heel. Now he's going to get the heat, and he can help draw it while still being able to go out and put on great matches. Freshen up his character. That's 3. We'll hit one more real quick before we call it. Some of these we'll end up coming back to a little bit later on because some of them intersect. And we'll go with number 4. I'm going to go with the NWO, Bash at the Beach. The Invasion, Nash. Is he still working with WWE? Like, what's going on? Or WWF at the time. What's going on? Like, he's showing up. Hall shows up on Nitro. Like, whoa. That's Razor Ramon. What's going on? That's Diesel. Why are they on Nitro? And it got us all talking. Like, are they working? Are these companies working together? Are we going to have WWF versus WCW? Not knowing at the time, both left WWF and went to WCW. Excellent by Bischoff because it helped them in their ratings. Like, whoa, 2 stars of this organization or this promotion are coming over here, and it's played off like it's an invasion. It was really, really well done. And it was the third man. Who's the third man? We got a third man. And you have Bash at the Beach. Historical event. Hall and Nash and the third man against Luger, Sting, and Savage. And you can look at Luger as being the face of, Sting as being one of the faces of the company. All faces. And then you have the heels, and the match plays out how it plays out. And then it chaos at the end, as it always is in big main events for wrestling, it feels like. And then you have Hogan coming down to the ring. Like, here comes Hogan. Hogan to save the day. Hogan, storms down to the ring. Got a look of purpose on his face. And the crowd is like, all right, here we go. Hogan's going to save the day. And what does he do? He gets in the ring. A Macho Man's laying down on the ground. And, well, let me just back into the ropes. Boom. Leg drop. Crowd stunned. Crowd is stunned. Then you kind of hear the cheers like, Hogan is a heel. What the hell just happened? What are we watching? Hulk Hogan, this larger than life character, carried wrestling through the pay-per-view era, helped get WrestleMania kicked off and become this big, massive brand that it is now. Carries the WWF for years, and he leaves. He goes to WCW. He's still the Hulkster. While his theme song may change, his wrestling is still the same, but as with all things in wrestling, it only can go for so long, and it starts to get a little stale, and he's starting to lose fan support, and the ratings are starting to take a little bit of a dip because, like, I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen this for like the last 7-8 years. Like, what's different now? We're just watching the same thing we watched on, Monday Night Raw, at WrestleMania, at these pay-per-views over here. Like, we don't want to watch this game. We want to see something different. Perfect. Hogan gets a completely new character based off of what happens with the NWO, becomes a leader of this faction. Full on heel. We'll go ahead and get the full lettuce going there. She's got the black and white now as opposed to the red and yellow. Full on heel. Heel tactics, always finding cheap ways to get the job done. Like, it is by far the biggest, as far as, in my opinion, it is the biggest face heel turn in the history of pro wrestling. And it did so much for him because he's one of, I talk about when I'm streaming on Twitch, that he is one of the Mount Rushmore guys in wrestling. So think about it. He's a Mount Rushmore guy probably before he even turns heel. This dude gets essentially a second career because of him having this heel turn. More title matches, more headlines of, headlining pay-per-views. It did so much. And at the same time, you bring in the NWO, the effect that it had on the industry, because now you have, these guys are a little more real life. These are grittier storylines than, a lot of the fantasy stuff that you had at the time going into the wrestling industry. So not just does it give Hogan a new character, it gives the NWO as a whole and the pro wrestling industry a different trajectory. Because now we're getting into, hey, this appeals to kids and appeals to adults because it's fantasy, but hey, now we're starting to bleed some real life stuff into this. This stuff is starting to get a little nasty. We're having more realistic storylines. The NWO played a huge part in this. I'm really glad they're going into the Hall of Fame this year. I know a lot of people like DX talked about it a couple nights ago. DX, great, but NWO, they had a huge effect on the industry, especially in terms of storylines. And one of the big reasons for that is because you have Hogan making the ultimate turn, going to a heel. Some things I didn't like about it because some of his some of the backstage politics were a little disgusting. But other than that, it had a huge effect on the industry. We're gonna call it there. We got through 4. We'll try to knock out 2 more in the next video, maybe 3, 2 and 3. The last video is reserved specifically for one topic because it had such a huge effect on the industry. It needs at least 10 to 15 minutes on its own. Thanks for listening. We'll get video up in a reasonable amount of time. I'll see you later.